There's something the body understands before the mind does. A sharp strike on a drum skin, and something activates, something that bypasses thought and goes straight to the flesh. Your feet respond before you decide to move. Your shoulders follow without permission. Your chest opens. Some music is heard, and some music is felt deep inside, in the bones, in the rhythm of the blood. Samba belongs to that second category. It's not something you watch from a distance. It's something that gets into you. When the rhythm of a percussion battery starts up, it doesn't sound like accompaniment. It sounds like a command, like an invitation that doesn't wait for an answer because it already knows the answer is coming. That constant syncopated pulse that moves forward and backward at the same time, that pushes from below and lifts you up, is the signature of something that took generations to find its shape. Samba wasn't invented in a day or by a single person. It was built collectively, over time, from the crossing of memories that traveled very far to find each other in the same place. Brazil is a country made of forced arrivals, of impossible crossings, of cultures that coexisted under the most violent conditions, and still managed to create something that had never existed before. Between the 16th and 19th centuries, millions of people were torn from the African continent and brought to Brazil as slaves. They carried with them languages, beliefs, ways of praying, ways of healing, ways of cooking, and above all, ways of making music. Music wasn't a luxury or entertainment in those cultures. It was a form of communication with the sacred, a social technology for holding the group together, a way of passing down history without paper or ink. When those people arrived in Brazil, they brought all of that with them. And even though nearly everything was taken from them, the rhythm survived. The African traditions that most influenced samba came from different regions of the continent, but they shared something fundamental: percussion as the central axis. Not as background, but as the main event. Rhythm wasn't what accompanied the melody, it was what organized everything, and living inside that rhythm was also the body. In many of those traditions, singing, playing, and moving were a single thing. The separation between musician and dancer didn't exist in the same way it does in Western music. You participated with everything you had. That inheritance began to mix in Brazil with other influences. Portuguese culture left its mark on the melody, on certain harmonic structures, on the way songs were built around lyrics. Urban popular life, especially in cities like Salvador de Bahia and later Rio de Janeiro, created contexts where those mixtures accelerated. The homes of Afro-Brazilian families, the terreiros where religions like candomblé were practiced, the alleyways near the port, the neighborhoods of the poorest workers. These were the spaces where music was made, transformed, and passed on. One of the most important places in the history of samba was Rio de Janeiro in the early 20th century. The city was growing fast, modernizing at full speed, and pushing its poorest populations up into the hillside favelas. But those communities that power wanted to make invisible had an intensely rich cultural life. In the homes of the so-called Bahian aunties, Afro-Brazilian women who had migrated from Bahia and who held spiritual and social authority in their communities, people gathered to play, sing, and dance. There, the rhythm that already carried centuries of history began to take on a particular shape. More urban, more in conversation with its own time, but with the same deep roots. The rhythm that defines samba has a quality that makes it immediately recognizable. It's syncopated, meaning the accent doesn't fall where a Western ear would expect it. Something shifts, moving just slightly ahead or behind the beat, just enough to create a tension that isn't discomfort but energy. That displacement is what makes the body want to move. It isn't an irregularity, it's an intention. The rhythm of samba is designed, even though no one designed it consciously, so that movement becomes the natural response. The body doesn't dance in spite of the rhythm. It dances because the rhythm asks it to. Percussion in samba isn't a single voice. It's a dialogue between multiple instruments that cross and answer each other. The surdo marks the deep pulse, the foundation on which everything else is built. The tamborim and the repique add higher, faster layers. The caixa brings texture. The agogo, with its metal bells, contributes a melodic counterpoint within the percussive universe. When everything plays together, it doesn't sound like a monolithic block but like a very precise conversation between voices that are genuinely listening to one another. That rhythmic architecture is one of the most sophisticated things popular music has ever produced. But samba is not only percussion, it has an equally powerful melodic and lyrical dimension. The cavaquinho, a small string instrument, and the violão, the Brazilian guitar, create the harmony that supports the voice. And the voice in samba has a particular way of existing inside the music. It can be soft or high-pitched, melancholic or joyful, but it's always in a deeply physical relationship with the rhythm. It doesn't float above it, it lives inside it. Over time, samba diversified into many forms. There isn't one samba, but many. Samba de roda, the oldest form, danced in a circle with great emphasis on hip movement, has been recognized as an intangible cultural heritage of humanity. Samba Enredo is composed for samba schools during Carnival, telling a story through music, singing, and visual performance. Samba canção has a slower, more romantic quality, closer to a ballad. Pagode emerged in the 1980s as a more intimate and communal way of playing samba, with instruments like the bandolim and the tantan. Each variation speaks from a different angle, but all of them share that same root of shared rhythm, collective participation, and the body as instrument. Rio's Carnival became over time the most visible showcase for samba in the world. Samba schools, which aren't schools in the academic sense but communities organized around a neighborhood or a shared identity, compete each year with a parade involving thousands of people, months of preparation, and a production that weaves together music, dance, costume, floats, and narrative. For many people living in Rio's hillside communities, their samba school is far more than an annual celebration. It's a community institution, a place of belonging, a reason to organize and to create together. And that's where a dimension of samba often gets lost when people look at it only as entertainment. Samba was born in marginalized, persecuted, monitored communities. For a long time, it was considered the music of troublemakers and drifters, of people with no respectable occupation, according to the authorities of the day. There were periods when practicing it could mean trouble with the police. Candomblé, with which samba has deep ties, was also persecuted. The same people making that music lived on the margins of a society that needed them economically, but refused to recognize their dignity or their rights. And still, they kept playing, they kept dancing, they kept building a culture that history would eventually recognize as one of the most original and powerful things Brazil has ever given the world. That continuity is not an accident, it's a form of resistance. Every time the rhythm starts up at a roda de samba, at a school rehearsal, at a Sunday pagode in a backyard in Rio, something gets transmitted that isn't written down anywhere. A way of being together, of remembering together, of affirming that the pulse they carry in their memory is still alive. Samba is an inheritance that was never locked in a museum. It kept moving. Its influence spread far beyond Brazil. Bossa Nova, which revolutionized popular music in the 1950s and 60s and won over the entire world, is in large part a child of samba. João Gilberto, its founding figure, took the syncopated rhythm of samba and internalized it until it became almost whispered, intimate, radical in its restraint. Bossa Nova carried the rhythmic essence of samba to listeners on every continent who might never set foot in Brazil. And from there, samba kept branching out into influences, fusions, and wider recognition. Jazz producers studied it. Musicians from around the world came to it searching for the secret of a rhythm that makes the body simply unable to stay still. That secret, if there is one, isn't hidden in any technical formula. It lies in the fact that samba was never just music. It was always movement, community, memory, celebration, and resistance all at once. It was a way of saying we are here and this is who we are, through something that needed no words because it spoke directly to the body of whoever heard it. The rhythm didn't represent that identity, it was that identity. Some genres of music are heard with the head. They ask for analysis, context, critical distance to be understood. Samba doesn't work that way. Samba enters through the body and reaches everything else afterward. First it moves you, then it tells you its story. And when you're already inside that pulse, when your feet have found their place and your hands are keeping time without anyone asking them to, you understand something that no explanation can fully give. That a story can also be told through dance, that rhythm can be an archive, that movement can be memory, and that a community that shares a pulse already has something no one can ever take away.